This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Their big-ticket buys caught up in a highly sophisticated auto theft bust. Authorities here say they've shut down an illegal operation that was using Manitoba as a pipeline to launder stolen cars. CBC's Rosanna Hempel has the latest.
These VIN numbers are very easy to reproduce.
This is one of 17 high-end cars that were sold here in Manitoba. All stolen, 16 from Ontario, 1 from Manitoba.
Today, we're highlighting one of the largest auto theft fraud cases in Manitoba's history.
Justice Minister Matt Wiebe called it sophisticated. Winnipeg police say the vehicles were given altered or cloned vehicle identification numbers, then sold to unsuspecting buyers and dealerships in the Winnipeg area. New technology from Manitoba Public Insurance helped detect the fraud and link the cases together.
This is definitely a first of its kind tool in Manitoba, and it will continue to be an essential asset in stopping auto crime before it reaches Manitobans and impacting our customers.
The Crown Corporation and police began investigating last February. Police say it led them to a 23-year-old male suspect in Winnipeg. He now faces 68 charges, including fraud over $5,000 and tampering with vehicle ID numbers. Officials say the case also helped expose 2 interprovincial criminal organizations.
These organizations were using Manitoba as a hub for laundering stolen vehicles and then selling them to dealerships in the city of Winnipeg and to private citizens.
Winnipeg Police Superintendent Cam McKidd hopes these developments discourage more auto theft in the province. In the meantime, he's cautioning buyers.
It's a matter of being really vigilant with respect to the owner history, especially vehicles that are coming from out of province.
Police expect more arrests and seizures are coming. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg journalist is fighting a court battle to keep one of his interviews out of the hands of the police. The interview was conducted in the aftermath of a mass shooting, and detectives got Manitoba court's permission to see it. But the reporter is arguing that giving police access would infringe on his journalistic independence. CBC's Josh Crabb has that story.
Who police say may be responsible for one of the worst mass shootings in Winnipeg's history.
This is journalist Morgan Majeski introducing a report that aired on City News in December 2023. He got an interview with Randall Chummy Fagnan, whose son is accused in a mass shooting in the city's West Broadway neighborhood.
When he goes into a seizure, he doesn't remember who he is.
Jamie Randy Felix has been charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. None of the charges has been tested in court. In this edited television story, Fagnan tells Majeski his son was having a seizure at the time of the shooting and spoke about other details regarding Felix's cognitive abilities. Winnipeg police got a production order this past September to get the full unedited interview, but Majeski doesn't want them to have it. In his affidavit, he says it would have the effect of co-opting members of journalistic organizations as agents of the police and blur the important democratic line between our role as societal watchdogs and the role of the police as governmental authorities. His lawyer, Ian McKinnon, is fighting in court to keep it out of their hands.
The journalists have a special position in society because of their role in gathering and publishing news. And as part of that special position and role, they're entitled to a certain amount of privacy and protection over their work product.
In a sworn affidavit, a Winnipeg police detective says Fagnan refused to give investigators a full statement, so they want Majeski's complete unedited interview. The detective says it's relevant to their investigation. The Crown opposes Majeski's challenge on behalf of police. It says, by the very nature of the information provided, how it was provided to the journalist, and that it was aired all suggest this information was not provided by a person who sought confidentiality, nor believed the information they were providing was going to be held in confidence. Canadian Association of Journalists President Brent Jolly worries some people may think twice about talking to reporters if Majeski's challenge is rejected.
I think we really need to understand here the impact that a chill can have, and the impact of the media's impartiality to be, neutral and independent from power.
Majeski's employer, Rogers Media, successfully challenged 2 previous attempts by police to get a production order, but police got one on a 3rd try. The company is now allowing Majeski to challenge the order on his own. No date for a decision has been given. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The City of Winnipeg has picked 7 properties it owns, which could soon be turned into affordable housing. The properties are spread throughout the city in neighbourhoods including St. Boniface, West Alexander and West Broadway. The list includes 22 Granite Way, where a 111-unit project is planned to go next to the Granite Curling Club. A hearing on that project is slated to go ahead at the Property Committee next Thursday. The city says building on the 7 properties will help it meet its goals under the Federal Housing Accelerator Fund. It aims to have all projects completed by the end of 2026. Operators at a City of Winnipeg golf course have fallen behind on property taxes and rent. Now the city says it wants to run the Canoe Club golf course itself. Golf Services Manager Ben Fay says conditions and service levels at the course have declined significantly. Last season, city staff found areas where grass had not been cut and problems with the irrigation system.
We feel that the City of Winnipeg golf course staff can assume operations at this site. We have a knowledge base of what the issues are and the resources to fix it and restore the playing conditions and provide a better overall golf experience for the customer.
A city report recommends hiring 8 seasonal staff to run the golf course. The city thinks running the course itself will save $75,000 this year. International students are questioning Manitoba's commitment to a free and universal healthcare system. Sometimes they have to pay out of pocket. The NDP promised to stop the practice in the last election, but as the CBC's Ian Fraser reports, these students are still waiting.
For Adita Gandhi, healthcare can be costly.
It's not really universal healthcare when you have to pay.
In Manitoba, international students are required to spend more than $1,400 a year for primary health insurance.
There have been times where I had to go get x-rays, $60. You can get them reimbursed, but that takes like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
In the last election, the NDP vowed to reinstate healthcare coverage for international students, something the former PC government cut in 2018. But 15 months after the NDP's election, nothing's changed.
Things can take time, but it's disappointing as an international student for sure to almost have a false promise made.
At a recent CBC town hall on the problems facing international students, Anigo Okudo recalled a clinic asking him for $200 up front.
I just left because if you check and you see that you don't have enough funds to cover that for that moment, there's no point to have that debate.
He's got insurance, but it's not always clear how much is covered.
Goes past that, you're almost expected to pay out of pocket.
The Minister for Advanced Education wouldn't provide a timeline for restoring international health coverage, but said in an email, any new program goes through a rigorous evaluation.
It sounds to me like they're kicking the can down the road.
Kathleen Cook, whose party cut the program in the first place, called the NDP's new promise foolish, saying other issues in healthcare are more pressing.
The priority needs to be on increasing access to care, expanding system capacity for Manitobans.
Gandhi understands that, but hopes he won't have to look at his bank account the next time he seeks medical care. Ian Fraser, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, after many days above seasonal temperatures, it was time once again today to pull out that extension cord and plug your block heater back in. So how long is this cold snap going to last? Ethan Williams in now with your forecast.
Well, Brittany, all of Manitoba experiencing some chillier temperatures now as the cold front has made its way through. For Winnipeg and southern Manitoba, these daytime high temperatures were actually hit very early Friday morning. Our temperatures just kept kind of dropping after that. And for extreme northern Manitoba, once again, we still have that extreme cold warning in place as those wind chills continue to be in that -45 to -50 range as we get into the weekend. And some of that colder weather will be heading into southern Manitoba. Of course, it already has, but there's more on the way. But there's also some snow on the way as well. Already snowing by 8 a.m. Saturday morning. The winds are going to be picking up as well. So this will lead to likely reduced visibilities on highways and even in the cities as we get into the noon hour. And then by 4 o'clock, I think the bulk of the snow has moved out. We reach a high of around -7, but that wind will still be gusting a little bit as we head throughout the day. I'll let you know how much snow we can expect in your full forecast coming up.
It's the bus you don't want to be late for. How one group is breaking down transportation barriers and making grocery shopping more accessible. More on that after the break. For Winnipeg seniors with transportation needs, a new initiative is helping fill the gap. FAB, or the Food Access Bus, helps seniors get to the grocery store without hassle. On Thursday, more than 40 people from 3 North Winnipeg neighbourhoods took part in the program's first ever run. CBC's Felicia Adam went along for the ride.
This might look like a regular transit bus, making its stops and picking people up, but it's not. It's the Food Access Bus.
How many people have you got, please? I don't know, maybe only 4 or 5.
Its only goal, get seniors with no transportation or mobility issues to the store.
I'm gonna go shopping. It's quite a different experience for us. We haven't had a bus take us shopping for a long time.
For the past 15 years, Elaine Shirlayoff has been taking Transit Plus to do her grocery shopping. But its trips, she says, limit her and rack up a bill at the end of the month. This program gives her the flexibility others don't.
It's so much easier getting onto a bus like this than it is having to force yourself to sit in the back of a car, especially at our age.
The initiative also means she doesn't need to worry about the cost of getting to and from the store.
That's where normal bus stops.
Shirlayoff says it's tough enough covering the cost of everyday essentials.
It's hard for everybody, but seniors are really feeling the pinch. You have to check everything out before you buy it.
In a couple of hours, the bus was full, taking people to Walmart and Superstore.
She has a small window of time to load up.
I am going to the shop. I have certain things that I buy. It'll be like fruit, frozen fruit, cottage cheese, yogurt, stuff like that.
Lilani Villarba is the head of Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal. The organization spearheaded the initiative when they saw the need.
You're looking at $20 plus just to get to the grocery store, you know, and this is free.
There's yogurt in here. There's Eggo waffles.
Shirlayoff says this grocery run will last her for a couple of weeks.
It saves me going out in the cold. Maybe there'll be a couple of cold days coming up.
City councillors from Elmwood and North Kildonan pitched in collectively $7,000 in funds from their wards. This means the program can run monthly until the end of the year. Felicia Adam, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Meantime, a new food program in Brandon is taking the first steps in helping ensure food-insecure students aren't studying hungry. Harvest Manitoba made its first meals-to-go delivery to the Wheat City earlier this week. CBC's Chelsea Kemp has the story.
13, 14. Eric Sakira brings in boxes of food. He says he doesn't like to see his friends go hungry. So he's volunteering with Harvest Manitoba's new Meals to Go program, distributing bags of healthy snacks for them to take home on the weekend.
A lot of good stuff, and it was helping kids that didn't have breakfast, and I wanted to be in it and help because it's a good thing for all of us.
King George and Betty Gibson schools will be getting 600 meals to go every Friday. The kits that are packaged in Winnipeg include fresh dairy products, fruit, veggies, and other snacks. Grade 8 student Dominic Riaz says he's grateful.
No, I know some people that are in different classes that are my friends that don't have any snack for the whole day.
King George Principal Robert Dinsdale says the school division wants to help families struggling with the cost of living.
The cost of food in general across the country, the province, is significant, and families feel that, and so we know that well-fed students are better set up to learn.
For now, Sakura says he's looking forward to trying out his first meals to go.
I'm going to eat it at home as a little snack, a treat for me.
Harvest Manitoba wants to team up with a local group to start making kits in Brandon. They also hope to grow the program into other schools soon. Chelsea Kemp, CBC News, Brandon.
Winnipeg police say 2 young girls were the victims of an attempted child abduction yesterday. The girls, aged 8 and 10 years old, were walking to school around Beaverbrook and Centennial Streets in River Heights. An unknown man started following them and grabbed one of their hands. Police say someone nearby saw and intervened. The man ran away, and when the girls got to school, they told an adult. The suspect is described as in his 30s, 6 feet tall, with a thin build and thin blonde hair. He was wearing a tan beach hat with sunglasses, a tank top, and tropical shorts. And police in northern Manitoba say on Wednesday they dealt with an attempted child abduction in Split Lake. Police say an 8-year-old girl was on her way to school when an unknown man in a white van offered her a ride. She says the man had short white hair and a light gray jacket on. Other witnesses say they saw a white van drive by the TCN gas bar a number of times. Police were unable to find the suspect. Manitoba Hydro hit a new peak usage record this month. On the morning of January 20th, the temperature dipped to nearly -33 Celsius. Manitoba Hydro says the peak demand was just over 5,100 megawatts. That beat the previous record of 4,900, which was set on December 12th. Manitoba Hydro's maximum capacity is 6,100 megawatts, but only when water levels on Lake Winnipeg are topped up. If you stepped outside, you know that cold weather is back. We'll see how long it's going to stick around for. Ethan Williamson now with a look on our forecast. Ethan.
Well, high pressure has been keeping much of the province nice and sunny, but we are now beginning to see that move out, and already some snowfall moving into western portions of Manitoba. So here's how things are expected to play out from a couple of rounds of snowfall that we're expecting through the weekend. That high moves away, and I think by tomorrow morning, by early Saturday morning, already into the Winnipeg area and through the Red River Valley and through much of western sections, that snow is already moving through. By the noon hour, I think that's when we're going to be seeing that the most around Winnipeg. And by the time we get to the afternoon hours, though, through Saturday, that first wave of snow has mostly moved out. Then we have the second wave around the center of this low pressure system, which is going to be mostly moving, I think, just to the north of Winnipeg. I think we'll escape kind of the brunt of that snowfall, and it's mostly going to be moving through the Interlake before moving into northwestern Ontario. So these are snowfall totals through to pretty much midday Monday. And as you can see, for Winnipeg and the Trans-Canada corridor and southward, we're looking for maybe 5 centimeters, maybe a little bit higher than that. But again, it's in western sections of the Interlake and along the Saskatchewan border there where we could have amounts in the range of 15 to 20 centimeters. Northwestern Ontario, we could get in that 10 to 15 range by the end of the weekend. Of course, winds are going to be picking up with this as well. So already into Saturday, gusting to 50 in the Winnipeg area. And then I think we're in for a repeat of that as we get into Sunday for many locations. So that means visibility through Saturday and Sunday. If you have weekend travel plans, well, you might want to keep an eye out because I think the visibilities will be dropping for us as both the first and second wave of that snowfall starts to move through. And we've seen visibility near zero at times in Saskatchewan with this same system, so we'll have to watch out for that. Good weekend to just do this. I think Miss Maya here has the right idea for sure. Thanks to Marie for sending in that photo. And a reminder, you can always send us your pet photos, cats, dogs, or otherwise. And I think once we get through the system Saturday for Winnipeg, again, it's maybe just some lingering flurries for Sunday as the Interlake gets the most of that second round of snow, but it'll continue to be gusty. And then that colder air sets back in once again as we see a mix of sun and cloud for Monday. Some colder temperatures likely sticking with us through the week, Brittany. I'll have the details on that in your full 7-day forecast coming up.
More to come straight after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
This place, every community has a tale to tell.
And CBC is here to share them. Watching, listening, reading, streaming.
CBC, telling Manitoba's story wherever you are.
It's now official. A trade war with the United States is about to begin. This afternoon, the White House press secretary said the U.S. will impose tariffs on Canadian goods in the next 24 hours.
Can confirm that tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China.
The press secretary said she did not know if any Canadian goods would be exempted from the U.S. tariffs, but that details would be made public tomorrow. Later in the Oval Office, Trump said nothing can be done to stop the tariffs. He also says he'll impose a 10% tariff reduced from 25% on Canadian oil and gas. That's likely to take effect on February 18th. But Canadian officials are still making last-minute attempts in Washington and beyond to avoid them. They're also preparing to retaliate. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met with the Council on Canada-U.S. Relations and says the government is ready to respond to any new duties with a forceful and immediate response. Now, as we said, the Prime Minister has been meeting with members of his cabinet and a panel of experts amid a final last-minute push to try to stop those tariffs. Ashley Burke now with the latest on Canada's response.
Illegal crossings.
The Prime Minister says he doesn't know exactly what Donald Trump's tariffs could look like, but one thing is certain.
If the president does choose to implement any tariffs against Canada, we're ready with a response. A purposeful, forceful, but reasonable, immediate response.
Justin Trudeau meeting with his Canada-U.S. Council, experts helping him navigate the crisis at a critical time.
I won't sugarcoat it. Our nation could be facing difficult times in the coming days and weeks. I know Canadians might be anxious and worried, but I want them to know the federal government, and indeed all orders of government, have their backs.
Trudeau said Canada's prepared for every scenario to deal with whatever Trump does next.
His motto is to create as much chaos and instability out there as possible in order to drive investment out of Canada into the United States.
Others say Trump's strategy is simple. He's all about power, control, and money. That's it.
These things are what we have to respond to and have to make sure we're standing tall against.
As Canada tries to fend off a trade war, ministers are still warning the U.S. that tariffs will hurt them too.
Tariffs makes life a lot more expensive for Americans, and I encourage our American friends that they should also be sharing that widely.
While the country braces for impact, the government's plan includes cutting the red tape on interprovincial trade so Canada can rely on the U.S. less. Sources say the government's plan includes $37 billion worth of tariffs on American goods that could rise to more than $100 billion if Trump doesn't back down, plus a multi-billion-dollar aid package to help shore up the Canadian economy if needed. But all of this will depend on the severity of what Trump does next. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
The Canada-U.S. border is a major trigger point in this country's relationship with the Trump administration. Enforcement has been increased in response to Trump's tariff threats. And CBC News went on a ride-along this week with an RCMP border patrol in Quebec. Catherine Tunney reports.
If I can't have proper monitoring, it means nothing.
It's a bleak, frigid day as RCMP Sergeant Daniel Dubois makes his rounds, looking for people trying to cross the border illegally, either into or from the U.S.
So people will cross here.
The day's freezing temperatures and blustering winds, just part of being a Mountie. But there's another element he and his team are weathering these days, a political storm.
People do think, like everywhere else in different work environments, about the election itself. The only difference with us is it will affect our work.
Earlier this week, CBC News shadowed Dubois on a stormy day near the Quebec-New York border, waiting for tips to come in and checking known crossing points for any evidence.
No footprints today.
With U.S. President Donald Trump citing concerns with the northern border as a reason to impose punishing tariffs, pressure is mounting on this side to act, heightening stress.
Right now, we don't know how things are going to go. So that causes anxiety, for the membership.
The RCMP says today's weather is likely keeping things quiet along the border, but all it takes is a shift in temperature or policy to start creating problems. Roxham Road, once the epicenter of Canada's migrant crisis, when tens of thousands of people used this unofficial crossing to enter Canada during Trump's first term. Now the re-elected president is cracking down even harder on immigration. That has the RCMP preparing for a possible northern surge, this time under updated laws. These days, northbound asylum claimants are turned back to the U.S. unless they can stay undetected for 14 days, potentially making the RCMP's job much harder.
We're facing a reality that our patrol officers would have to respond anywhere and everywhere in the area.
As the day ends, some relief for Dubois. No one has been spotted attempting to cross today, no kids in the cold. But with the weather promising to warm up, and in an ever-shifting political climate, there's no telling how long that peace will last. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Hemmingford, Quebec.
We have a correction to a story we brought you Thursday on the plane that crashed in Washington, D.C. CBC News incorrectly reported that among the 67 dead was the 23-year-old son of the two Russian championship pair figure skaters. In fact, he flew on another flight and arrived safely at home. We regret this error. There are new questions, though, about understaffing at Washington's Reagan International Airport after that deadly collision between a passenger plane and military helicopter. There are reports that one air traffic controller was juggling two jobs that night, one for helicopter traffic and another for planes. But federal aviation officials say that isn't against the rules.
DCA is a very busy airport. There's a lot going on, so you can have multiple different controllers in the cab. Sometimes they're doing one or two different functions. It's not unusual in the evening hours, depending upon the congestion and the traffic in the airspace.
Divers were back in the Potomac River today as efforts to recover the remaining victims and pieces of the aircraft continue. The plane's voice recorder and flight data recorder were recovered several hours after the crash. All 67 people on the plane and Black Hawk helicopter were killed. Helicopter traffic in the airport area has now been restricted indefinitely. To the federal Liberal leadership race now, and one candidate's new take on the carbon tax. This morning, former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney said he now plans to scrap the tax if elected and replace it with a different plan. Just one of the big issues he and his main competitor spoke about today. Rafi Boudjkanian has the details.
So if I see that something isn't working, I'm going to change it.
Mark Carney in Halifax, surrounded by some of the very Liberal MPs that convinced the Prime Minister in 2023 to freeze the consumer carbon tax in Atlantic Canada, now pledging to wipe out Justin Trudeau's signature environmental policy across the country.
You'll no longer have to pay more to fuel your car or heat your home. But when you choose an energy-efficient appliance or an electric car or home insulation, you will be rewarded, and we will get the big polluters to pay for it.
In place of the carbon tax, Carney says if elected Liberal leader, he'd create an incentive program that would reward Canadian individuals and industry for making green choices and lower emissions. A dramatic turn from what he said before, but he still agrees with the Prime Minister on his response to U.S. tariffs expected tomorrow.
We will impose retaliatory dollar-for-dollar tariffs if these measures are put in place. We will target those tariffs where they have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact in Canada.
The other frontrunner in the race, Chrystia Freeland, today saying Canada should threaten 100% tariffs on U.S. alcohol and on Teslas, the electric vehicles produced by Trump ally Elon Musk's company. She's also promised the end of the consumer carbon tax, but has yet to reveal her substitute.
I think they are aware that while it is perhaps an effective tool to save on carbon emissions, but at the same time, it's not going to work if people don't buy in.
This Liberal strategist says it's a small wonder the levy is disappearing from the leadership candidates' platforms.
In the opposition, they've been really successful at, sharing that the carbon tax was bad, that it caused inflation, that it made life more expensive to Canadians. And while there is no proof points for that, it would have been a very effective message.
In a video released on Friday about Carney, the Conservatives tried to do that again.
He's announced that he will pause the carbon tax for a few months right before the election to trick people into re-electing the Liberals. After the election, he will bring in a much bigger carbon tax when he no longer needs your vote, but still needs your money.
Carney has said nothing of the sort, but he is pledging on keeping the corporate tax for industrial emitters while making them pay for Canadians' greener choices, with no explanations on how he'll keep companies from passing those costs down to consumers. The candidates will find their ideas tested in 2 leadership debates next month. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Israel has received the names of the next 3 hostages set for release by Hamas in Gaza on Saturday. 35-year-old Yarden Bibas, an Israeli citizen, 54-year-old Ofer Calderon, who is French-Israeli, and 65-year-old Keith Siegel, who has joint Israeli and American citizenship. They'll be swapped for Palestinian prisoners under the terms of the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas that went into effect January 19th. On Thursday, Hamas freed 3 Israelis and 5 Thai workers held captive in Gaza, and Israel freed 110 Palestinian prisoners. Well, do you need that morning caffeine fix to get your day started? It could get more expensive. How much are you willing to pay? We'll hear from a coffee importer after the break. A potential trade war with the United States could impact your morning cup of joe. One Winnipeg coffee importer says tariffs could lead to higher prices, even if the beans are coming from other countries. CBC's Jim Agapito speaks with the owner of Black Pearl Coffee.
And Brazil has challenges with it. Hi, I'm Travis Boyd from Black Pearl Coffee Roaster in Winnipeg. So what we do is we import and roast specialty, fair trade, and organic coffee. Well, for me, I mean, it's a legal addictive substance in the north end of Winnipeg, and right there is a bonus to it, okay? So for over 24 years, we've experienced a lot of it. But coffee has a long lineage. It's an adult beverage. It is access to being an adult. It's one of the most recognizable smells in the world. It's the second largest traded commodity next to sugar. So coffee is a global thing, and for us, we want our little teeny part of it to make perfect coffee.
How would tariffs affect coffee around the world?
Well, around the world, tariffs with some of the coffee growing regions, export to the United States is a big thing. Colombia, as an example, was the most recent. They grow 12 to 14% of the world's coffee, and over 50% of their coffee goes directly to the United States. So any form of tariff with a high rate commodity like that would be very difficult for a country and other countries around the world as well.
Is it hard to get around using the United States?
Well, for instance, Cuba grows some spectacular coffee. Some of it does make its way to Canada, so it doesn't have to touch soil, but the largest broker houses in North America are East Coast, West Coast United States. If it happens, the first thing I'll notice is packaging for us. We use a specialty coffee bag. If Colombia, in fact, as one of the examples of the 12, 14 different coffees we get from different parts of the world, we would see that directly affect our green coffee purchasing as well.
Full pound or half pound today? Now, from a consumer, some of the people that buy from you or other, coffee shops around, maybe Canada, how would that affect, your?
Well, it's a trickle down and trickle up effect. So unfortunately, if our green prices go up, our packaging prices go up, I have to share that with my clients, and in turn, those cafes and stores have to share that with their clients. So it works all the way down the pipeline. That's the way it is. You can only absorb so much. Now, coffee before the possible U.S. tariff issue, there's been a big rise in coffee over probably the last 18 months, and it's become a higher traded commodity, and that has driven the price, and not the farm and not the initial broker. It's how that coffee is traded globally.
And do you think, buying Canadian, could it help to push back on U.S. tariffs?
Well, I think it could. Buying Canadian would help, but some of the stuff we're buying out of the U.S. is not made in the U.S. either. So we have to remember what buying Canadian means. It means Canadian produced, Canadian processed. Are we prepared to make those advancements? I would like to think we are. But buying out of the U.S., a lot of the goods we buy out of the U.S. are brought in offshore. As far as tariffs, I just want to remain a good neighbor, and I think there's ways of sorting it out.
Well, friends, it is the last day of January. We have made it through the month. And if you don't like these cold temperatures, maybe you like snow, because we have some of that on the way as well. Let's bring in Ethan Williams.
Well, the snow moving through the province over the weekend is likely going to be adding to what's already been a higher snowpack in some areas. You see, we get into, well, over 40 centimeters possibly of snow on the ground through portions of northern Manitoba. In the Winnipeg area and through much of the south here, I think this is actually a bit of an undershoot of just how much snow we have on the ground. Kind of the best estimates that I can find are anywhere between about 25 and 30 centimeters of snowpack in the Winnipeg area as of the last day of January here. That is actually above average for what we normally see at the end of January. We're usually around 19 centimeters or so we're kind of just above where we should be. Now, what is fueling these couple of storm systems moving through is the jet stream, which has been, well, past couple of days anyway, it's been dropping to the south of us, but now will be flowing right over Winnipeg and southern Manitoba, and that allows those storm systems to kind of ride the jet and bring us that snowfall, and then it drops to the south again, and some colder temperatures start to make themselves known. For overnight Friday into Saturday, I think much of the south is looking for temperatures into the low -20s overnight. And again, that snow starts to move in, especially in western sections as we get into the overnight hours. For northern Manitoba, snow hasn't quite reached us by the overnight into Saturday, but again, we're still looking at those temperatures down around -30 or so. We're seeing those clear skies continuing, but we get into northern northern portions of the Inner Lake and near the Saskatchewan border by the noon hour Saturday, and we're already seeing that snow begin to move through, and that'll push that cloud cover further north, and we'll get some increasing cloudiness almost up to the Hudson Bay coast. By 7 a.m. Saturday, the snow has begun falling in Westman and through the Parklands, and then that makes its way eastward. And again, I think it's by the noon hour where the Winnipeg area and much of the Red River Valley is going to start to see that snow move in. Gusty winds at times going to make for tough travel conditions on the roads, I think. By 4 o'clock, that snow has largely moved out of Winnipeg proper, but will still be in eastern sections before that next round of snow begins to move in for most areas. Again, temperatures, though, going to get a bit of a bump up with this system moving through into those mid-minus single digits. But it's going to get cold, and I'll have the details on that in your full 7-day forecast straight ahead.
Social media has put hate on steroids, accelerating the harm it does. That's according to an international expert on reducing online hate. Dr. Andre Obler is the founder and CEO of the Online Hate Prevention Institute, based in Australia, and is in Winnipeg this week. Dr. Obler, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Brittany.
So what kinds of online hate are you seeing most, and how have you seen that kind of hate increase in recent years?
Look, the dominant hate we've been seeing lately is anti-Semitism. My organisation deals with all forms of online hate. So that includes Islamophobia, it includes anti-Indigenous racism, it includes homophobia, transphobia, misogyny. But anti-Semitism is by far and away the most common form we're seeing at the moment.
One of the things you said is that Jewish Canadians are among the most likely to be targeted. Why is that?
Look, we've seen a rise in anti-Semitism first during COVID, and we saw the use of Holocaust-related analogies, people trying to compare government health restrictions to the Nazis, comparing themselves to Jews in the Holocaust, and that just normalised a narrative of hate. We also saw during COVID Jews being blamed for COVID and blamed for controlling government and restrictions. That all started tailing off and things started returning to normal just as October 7 happened. And the terrorist attack on October 7 led to tensions rising in the Middle East, and that's led to an outpouring of anti-Semitism around the globe. And I've got to say, both Canada here and Australia, where I'm from, have been, really some of the worst cases where the anti-Semitism has just been tolerated. And because of that tolerance, it's grown and grown.
When it comes to social media, we often hear about bots, and you've noted that artificial intelligence is being used to fan those hatred flames. Is that part of why we're seeing it run rampant online?
Yeah, look, there is a problem with bots often by state actors, but most of what we're seeing is actually humans. And the role AI is playing is it's making it far easier for people to generate new content. And compared to before, where the same content was circulating over and over, and the AI from the tech companies was able to identify it, detect it, and automatically remove it, when it repeats, now it's just new content all the time. And and it's often graphical content, it's images, it's videos, and that's much harder to detect, both for the AI and even for the humans involved in trust and safety.
Dr. Obler, does what happens online stay online, or is there a real concern that it's not always just talk?
Look, what we've seen online is a normalisation of anti-Semitism and other forms of hate. It's created a tolerance, and that tolerance that happens in online forums then moves into the real world. It moves into discussions in the workplace. It moves into schools. It moves into public transport. It moves into the conversations people have in their daily lives, and the hate grows. So we have a normalisation of racism, a normalisation of anti-Semitism, and at the sort of hard end, we also have people self-radicalising into extremism. And that can very much lead to, physical attacks, to terrorist attacks, and the online world is triggering that, and we're not doing enough to stop it.
So on that, what can we do to stop it, us as civilians, as humans, as everyday people, and as governments?
Yeah, look, I think the first response really needs to be from government. Technology platforms need to be regulated. This hate is the pollution of the social media industry. And like any industry that has pollution, it should be up to the companies that are profiting to fix the problem, and government's role should be monitoring and measuring their efforts to do so and penalising them if they don't do enough. As for the role of civil society and everyday people, we need to keep track of the problem. We need people to report the hate they see. We need them to speak out when it's safe to do so. And we need civil society organisations both to monitor the problem and also to help explain the hate they see. Because even the tech companies that are dealing with this on a daily basis, they don't always understand. So we need experts, we need the communities that are impacted to speak up and explain what's going on and to demand responses, to demand action.
An important conversation. Dr. Obler, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, Ethan Williams is back with the last check on our forecast. This is Manitoba. And this is Manitoba on your smart TV, because CBC News is now streaming local. Local news and weather on your connected TV or favorite device. CBC News Manitoba, streaming now.
Well, after about 5 centimeters of snow moving through on Saturday, we're left with some lingering flurries for Sunday before things clear out. It'll be a windy Sunday, though, and then high pressure sets back in. We're looking at a colder pattern for Monday as we see the skies start to clear. A little bit of the cloud cover building back in for Tuesday, though, I think. Notice the temperature trend, though, for the rest of the work week. We're staying below seasonal, kind of in those mid to upper minus teens. Wednesday, we could see a little bit of some snow moving through, and then Thursday, the winds start to pick up a bit again as we see clearing as we get into Thursday and Friday with some overnight lows into the minus 20s. So some colder days ahead, Brittany, but by and large, staying out of the massive part of the deep freeze here.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Well, the weekend is upon us. It's been a long week and month, and some of us just want to go home, relax, and maybe eat some cookies. A moose named Helga in Alaska had the same idea recently. It's our Daily Lift.
Oh no, don't eat my cookies. Oh, Helga. Helga and her mom, they come and play in the sprinklers. Hi, you booped me. So I've known Helga since she was born. You booped me. When I see her, I just sit and talk to her, just like she's a human. Hello. Hi. How's it going? My husband's favorite cookies are no-bake cookies. And in Alaska, everybody uses outside as the fridge. So I just put them together, set them outside, and then came back and Helga was eating them. Oh no, don't eat my cookies. It's my husband's birthday. And I was talking to her like I talked to my cat. No, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. She knocked the whole pan off, ate the rest of them, and then walked off, and I'm assuming she took a nap. Oh! When my husband came home, I'm like, babe, I made your favorite cookies, but the moose ate them. And he's like, no, she didn't. And I was like, no, I swear to God, I got it on video. And so he watched it. He's like, oh my God, that's hilarious. I mean, what are you going to do? It's a 1,000-pound animal. Helga!
Well, at least she's got proof. It's not like the dog ate my homework. Well, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Riley and I will be back here on Monday. As always, have a warm weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you back here Monday.